Tennessee This Week from WATE 6 on your side starts now.
Hello and welcome to Tennessee This Week. Good to be with you. I'm Don Hudson. We are starting to see more campaign ads, yard signs. Maybe a candidate or two has actually knocked on your door. The November election is almost here. Now today we get to hear from the incumbent congressman here in Tennessee, Chuck Fleischman, and his challenger, Meg Gorman. It's Tennessee's 3rd congressional district, and we'll talk to them about the issues at the center of their campaigns. First, Congressman Fleischman, the Republican. On Thursday, I started our conversation asking him about high inflation and what he and his party plan to do about it.
On an individual level, for years I have served on the House Appropriations Committee and 3 key subcommittees, but one, of course, is energy and water. So I've worked very hard with people to try to make sure that America's energy abundance is available for the market. So I have continued to work towards that. Unfortunately, this administration has thwarted that with fossil fuels, specifically natural gas and oil, in their approach to try to go all green. I'm for all of the above energy. So having said that, our party is going to win in November in the House, probably in the Senate. And then what I think we need to do is sit down with this administration and say, enough is enough. Let's get back to common sense economic and energy policies, which will reap America's abundance that we have all across the United States, and get more supply out there in the market, and just have good common sense energy policies that will help the American people. I spoke with financiers the other day, and they told me that they are being disincentivized to fund energy projects in America, whether it's oil or natural gas. They are being told, don't do it, and being disincentivized to do it. What we've got to do is realize we've got this abundance to go out there and get it done. It's an all of the above failure on the part of the Biden-Harris administration. Sadly, Schumer and Pelosi have chimed in and done that. I want to get back to common sense energy policies where I can use my seat on the Appropriations Committee, specifically the Energy and Water Subcommittee, to make sure whether it's nuclear, whether it's oil, whether it's natural gas, that we go out and make these energy policies, energy available to the American people, to the free market, so that we can get more out there. And what will happen? The price will drop.
Let's jump on another thing. Military aid in Ukraine. Where do you stand on that? And will you continue to support it?
I did vote for it. I continue to support it, and I'll tell you why. We can't let Russia win in Ukraine. I've spent time in Kyiv. I've spoken with members of the Ukrainian parliament. The world should, and overwhelmingly has condemned, the Russian invasion into Ukraine. It's wrong. There is no way to justify it. It's caused death. It's caused destruction. It's caused infrastructure damage. And from a self-serving position as an American, Ukraine produces a lot of agriculture. It produces a lot of key manufacturing gases that the world needs. We could actually see famines now because of the disruption in that chain. Again, commodities, whether it's agricultural or petroleum, are out there. When you thwart that production, when you destroy that production in a big country like Ukraine, what the Russians have done is they will drive all these other commodity prices up. That's bad not only for Ukraine, but it's best for the worst for the rest of the world, where we actually see potentials for famine in poorer countries in Africa that are dependent on these key resources.
Let's talk about the federal government for a moment. If Republicans are in control, if there are some budget cuts to save money, how will you make sure that that doesn't impact East Tennessee? I mean, of course, we have things like the Great Smoky Mountain National Park, and we have other federally supported programs here that a lot of people depend on, a lot of companies depend on.
Well, in the new Congress, I am going to be what we affectionately call a cardinal. What that means is a subcommittee chairman on appropriations. So I will be one of the 12 key people in Congress responsible for discretionary spending. To answer your question, I think we need to be wise fiscally. Ultimately, we're going to probably have to address the real problem in the room, which is mandatory spending. There's not an appetite to do that yet. But as we go through the appropriation bills, I think we're going to have to make absolutely certain that we spend wisely, we hold the administration accountable, and more importantly, that they spend the money in the way that Congress directs, not the way that they feel in their radical woke endeavors to spend the money.
The Biden administration, as soon as they came in, said, hey, we're not going to continue to build the wall. Is that something that gets restarted if you take control? And do you see that as a major part in controlling right now the undocumented surge that we are seeing, which I don't think anyone on any side of the aisle is denying that a lot of people are coming in. Will you address that after the election?
It's another great question. I'm the ranking member right now, highest Republican on Homeland Security appropriations. So I actually did fund the wall. Joe Biden signed the bill, the appropriation bill, actually funding the wall. Unfortunately, he's not built it. So the administration is not following the law that came through the House and the Senate and that he signed. So what do we need to do? We need to go back to square one, congressional oversight. We have that in the Constitution. We need to bring administration officials before us and hold them accountable. Funding the wall is part of it. Technology is another part of it. But at every step of the turn, the Biden administration, whether it was doing away with the buffer policy in Mexico, stay in Mexico and things like that, they have thwarted us. And what they have done is they've created and incentivized illegal immigration into this country by the millions. What does that mean? It means crime. It means fentanyl. It means people on the terror watch list who should have never been allowed to get in have gotten in. Some we've apprehended. We have got to make absolutely certain that we stand up for a strong southern border, an American border that is secure. This administration has not done that. We need to hold their feet to the fire.
Now, you heard Congressman Fleischman talking about immigration there. His party has seen that issue as really a winner this fall. Democrats, meanwhile, have been campaigning on abortion rights in the aftermath of the Supreme Court's Roe versus Wade decision. Now, Meg Gorman wants to keep government out of the abortion decision and reimagine immigration as a civil matter, not a crime.
I will not argue with you. Yes, we absolutely do have a drug issue. But we also have a humanitarian crisis. And what we need to do is allocate our resources so that instead of people having to wait decades for citizenship, having to wait years or having to wait months on the border, that we are putting our resources into processing, that we are providing more legal aid, that we are providing mediators, that we have people who are translating, people who can actually help the process run more smoothly, because it's also going to be a lot easier when we do not have massive populations all together. So if we're able to process people coming in more smoothly, then it will make the rest of it fall in line. It's a really easy thing to attack because it creates an us against them sort of situation. But I'd be willing to bet that most Americans who you speak with, when you ask them about the people in their lives who they know who have immigrated here, they all speak very favorably about them. It's because we are a nation of immigrants. I mean, the diversity that we have in our country is one of our greatest strengths. It also has the ability to pull us apart if we let it. I do think a humane approach and a focus on what we want the outcome to be, which is we want people to be safe. And when people want to be a part of this country, when they want to live here, work here, raise their families here, pay their taxes here, why would we possibly want to turn that away? That sounds like a pretty great thing to me. I know that my grandmother, my mom's mom, she was pro-life her entire life. I mean, and that extended to any living thing. She would not kill a cockroach. She once moved a wasp nest outside after they had their babies in her house. She refused to kill them. She loved every living thing. And she had to have an abortion. And without it, she could have died. And under the current ban that we have in place in Tennessee, I doubt that I would be here today. I doubt that my mother would be here today. And, you know, she didn't think of it as an abortion because at that time, it was just the doctor doing what needed to be done to make sure that the pregnant person did not die. I have found, talking with people, a lot of people have experienced these things. A lot of people have experienced like term miscarriage, spontaneous abortion. An alarming number of people who I know, including a lot of Republican voters, a lot of conservative voters, a lot of pro-life voters, have found themselves in these situations before where they have received medical care, treatments, procedures that under this new ban, they would not be able to receive.
We also asked Gorman about inflation, one of what many analysts describe as headwinds for her fellow Democrats, but not the only challenge for Team Blue in what has for decades really been a red district.
I'm running as a Democrat, but I'm not running to represent Democrats. I'm running to represent the people of Tennessee's 3rd District. I find that a lot of people don't want to be, you know, lumped into this category. They don't want to be forced into a mold. They are confident in who they are, and they're comfortable saying that they're independent. They don't want to agree with any one party 100% of the time. And I think when we approach it in that way, because I feel similarly, much like we see with climate change or really anything else where we're failing to be proactive. When we do not act quickly enough, it is often, I won't say impossible to undo the damage, but it is way more difficult to mitigate the damage long term. There is no one perfect solution, but what I do think we need to be focused on are the things that we need to hold on to, like our basic foundational rights, largely our democracy, because without that, we will not have a say in how our future goes. We will not have a say in who represents us. And I get that right now we are all feeling the effects of inflation. It is very real. I think the Fed should have acted sooner. In addressing it, we knew that when we put money into the economy, it is going to be a result. We also know that the alternative was allowing people to go without homes, go without food, when they were already struggling during the middle of a global pandemic. I don't think that there is a single quick fix, but I do think that this is being used as a distraction because people in charge know that we are feeling it. And I count myself in that. I am an hourly worker. I notice when I go to fill up my tank. I notice when I buy groceries. So I feel it too, but I can't allow that to distract me from the really major issues here. Like if we lose our democracy, none of this other stuff matters because we will no longer be able to make decisions for ourselves.
Now, the race also features 2 more challengers, Thomas Rumba and Rick Tyler, both running in this race as independents. All right, still to come, we sit down with our panel of pundits. You're watching Tennessee This Week on WAT6 on your side. Welcome back to Tennessee This Week. We are now joined by our panel of political pundits. Courtney Piper, welcome back. Craig Griffith and George Korda. Thank you for taking the time. Let's go right into what we heard from Representative Fleischman and his challenger, Meg Gorman. They talked about several issues, but let's stick to the economy and inflation. Is that the biggest issue for people here? Because nationally, the polls say that is the #1 issue.
There was an interesting poll out the other day from the Kaiser Family Foundation and a university, the name of which escapes me at the moment. It said, for example, among Black voters, that the economy had 73% put it at the top. Everything else was virtually non-existent. And that's the way people across the country are thinking, including in the 3rd District. And we might remember back when Bill Clinton won the election for president in 1992, what was his mantra, or the mantra of his campaign manager, James Carville? It's the economy, stupid. And it remains the economy. And whether it's fair or unfair, right or wrong, legitimate or illegitimate, whoever's at the top of the heap and been making decisions for 2 years, and the economy is in the dumper that it's in, he and the party he represents are going to take it on the chin. That is historical. And so, yeah, is that the main issue? That's the main issue. And everything else comes in a distant second.
Well, these kitchen table issues are the most dear to people's hearts. I mean, that's what's, if you have to put more gas in your car and it costs more, you can't buy as many Christmas presents, things like that. But this is such an unusual period of economic news that we're in. Just last week, the GNP went up nearly three points. The economy is growing. Unemployment is still at 3%. So I question is what do the policy makers do about this? And they're using the tried and true method of raising interest rates, which now is beginning to really hit the housing industry hard, because for the first time in 2 decades, mortgages are above 7%. So, we're trying to put the brakes on the economy, but we seem to be going almost too hard on the brakes. And as I said last week, there's very little actually that the president can do about this, whether it be Republican or Democrat. The drivers of inflation are baked in the economy such that it's very difficult. And this is unusual again because wages are one of the biggest drivers of inflation. And in the last 12 to 18 months, the minimum wage has really gone to $15 per hour in most every industry. And that number has to be baked through their entire pricing structure, and it's raising people's prices.
After the Roe versus Wade was overturned this summer, Democrats had this huge wind in their sails, if you will. It was a really, really big issue to rally Democrats around. And what we've seen is the economy start to eclipse that momentum. While this issue, Roe versus Wade, overturning Roe versus Wade, is still Wade is closer to the top, the economy is just over eclipsing that issue. And like Craig said, it's a really weird spot because typically what you would see with this kind of economy that we have are jobs just in the toilet, and they're not. 3% unemployment is relatively zero unemployment. We've also seen wages grow as a result too. I mean, just drive down Asheville Highway and go into Morristown and Hamlin County, and you'll see manufacturers that are in bidding wars for assembly line workers. I've seen those signs go from $12 an hour to $15 an hour to over $20 an hour just in the last 12 months. So it's a really weird spot that we're in. I don't know what voters are expecting federal officials to do about it, other than maybe some kind of change will do something different. But we should also keep in mind that it could get worse.
First of all, I don't think a lot of Americans believe the unemployment rate anymore, because usually what you hear is, here's the unemployment rate, but you strip out this and this, then it's really worse.
Well, if they don't believe the unemployment rate, then they should believe employers who are saying, I cannot find people to work for me.
We hear that enough so that it creates...
To that point, though, just real quick to Courtney's point.
We hear that enough so it creates a question, but the reality is unemployment's going to go up. As interest rates rise, unemployment's going to go up. And I defy anybody who says, oh, it's not really the president's fault. And I'm not jumping on you, Craig, here, but I see that in the media. They would be saying, for the most part, exactly the opposite were Donald Trump still in office. They would be placing the blame for every bit of this right at his feet. And if you're the president and you say the buck stops with me, by gosh, it does.
Right.
And there is conservative media that are blaming Joe Biden for everything that's happened. Right. So it is
not just conservative media, Craig. Not just conservative media. It's happening more and more on the left. There's more and more talk on the left media about Biden not being able to run again in 2024, and maybe he shouldn't.
I understand what George is saying, that you can present any statistic and try to explain the story in any way that you want, but every single indicator of the economy is showing that unemployment rate is actually accurate. Right. Employers cannot find people to work for them because there is full employment. whether you're hiring for a job that requires an advanced degree or people just coming out of college, that's why manufacturers in particular are in bidding wars for talent. And they'll find people just going across the street or across the county for work because they're full. People are hiring. We're announcing new jobs every single day in the state of Tennessee,
Right.
and we just don't have the bodies to fill them.
Let's see where we are in 3 months is interesting.
Yeah. And what we'll do is we'll wrap this up, because I tell you, there are a lot of places I've been lately where it's like there clearly are not enough boys here to handle what needs to be handled. And so I'm seeing that myself. But we'll wrap this up. We'll take a break real quickly, and we'll be back with you. Welcome back to Tennessee This Week. We are still talking politics with our pundits. Thank you again for being with us, and thank you for sharing your time. Let's talk a little bit about looking into the crystal ball. Right now, it looks like it would be Ron DeSantis and former President Donald Trump if the Republicans were picking their candidate right now. But there doesn't seem to be a lot of love between the two, especially Trump towards DeSantis. November 6th, having a big rally in Florida. Trump's going down there. He did not invite DeSantis. How do you see this playing out in the Republican Party as pretty soon they got to pick somebody who's going to be that person?
Trump thinks that he created DeSantis,
yes,
that he was just a Florida senator. And now that DeSantis is making national waves, Trump doesn't like it. And, we'll see who wins out that battle. And DeSantis should win the Florida governorship, and that puts him on the stage. And we'll just look and see how many other state capitals he can fly Florida planes to with full of immigrants.
And that's actually a cheap shot.
Well, anyway.
It's a very cheap shot to immigrants.
Yeah, well, yeah, there are 5 million that have come across the border since Joe Biden became president, and you're focusing on 50.
Well, now DeSantis needs them to rebuild the state.
They're the reason they got the airline ticket.
Here is the deal with Trump and DeSantis. In 2016, when Trump was running against Hillary Clinton, I wrote a column for the News Sentinel where I said, Trump isn't a Republican. He's a Trumplicrat. He's a Trumplican. He's a party unto himself. If he runs, it will be because there are a few, I think, very core things that he might believe. But at the same time, I think that he's mainly running, if he runs, because he doesn't believe that he should have lost. And he thinks he probably won, and he wants to reestablish himself and kind of stick it to everybody who said he was done for. And I think DeSantis is kind of a Republican Party future figure. So as we get closer to this, the internal polling, I don't care what the public polls say. I don't care what the polls from different organizations say. The internal polling for DeSantis and Trump will dictate their actions. And if DeSantis's numbers show him that he would do well but not win, he won't run. He will cede the field to Donald Trump. But if it shows he's got a window in which to win, he'll take it because he can run as the future versus the past, versus the Democrats who have Joe Biden, and a majority of them don't want him to run again. But he's saying he's going to run again. Why? The same reason Trump is running, because it's a personal thing. It's his ego thing. It's a pride thing. It's I think I can be the best thing. So I think it's setting up on both parties to be just a bloody battle royal, unless either Trump or DeSantis looks at it and says, I can't do it, in which case they will gracefully withdraw. And I'd have to bet if that were going to be done, it would be DeSantis pulling back.
Right. Let's give Courtney the last word on this.
The fact that Trump is snubbing DeSantis shows that Trump will run for president in 2024. I don't see how he can't. Mm-hmm. This is how he's raising money. This is how he's earning money. This is how he's staying relevant. And we know that Donald Trump likes to be relevant. So if he cedes a presidential race, if he does not run, I don't know what will happen to his relevancy and his brand and all of his followers. And that kind of uncertainty, I don't think is what he wants either. So I don't see a scenario where Donald Trump isn't running, because that is currently how he is staying relevant. And the fact that he did not invite DeSantis to his rally just shows that.
Well, that'll be the last word because we have run out of time. I want to thank all three of you for being with us, and we want to thank you at home for watching Tennessee This Week, and we'll see you next week.
The views of guests on Tennessee This Week are their own and do not represent the views of WATE 6 on your side or Nexstar Broadcasting.